And action. Good evening, one and all. You are live with us on our YouTube on a Wednesday night. Once again, do say hello in the comments. Do tell us if my microphone is quiet. Once again, I'm not sure what happened last week, but do say hello. A lot of you regulars turning up in these live streams, so say hello once again. Right, good evening then to the very irreverent, very sweary League One minus 10. Glen, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good, mate. Despite the football, you try and enjoy yourself in life and not let the football ruin it too much. Back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, it used to ruin my entire life, but I try not to let it do that these days.
I think that's let's say that's quite brave and courageous of you to try and do that because every week we are let down by Southampton Football Club, and last week wasn't any different.
No, it was cliche time. It was a big 6-pointer, and we sucked. To be perfectly honest, we didn't put in a performance, and at the end of the day, it was a miracle we only lost 1-0. Really, if the balance of the game. If McCarthy hadn't made those two blinding saves, we'd have been absolutely dead and buried. And the only reason we even looked like we might get a point at the end is because West Ham were only 1-0 up. Pellegrini panicked and he tried to sit back, didn't he? Sorry, excuse me. Took off a striker, took off a midfield player, and he just tried to sit on it, which brought us onto them. But until that point, we didn't do anything or deserve anything, to be honest.
Right, let's say hello to some of our comments. Good evening, Kieran. How are you? Good evening, Nathan. Once again, how are you doing? Right, Nathan also adds to that. Villa's a must win. Anything less is it is looking very, very bad. But I'm sure we will go to that in a little bit more detail later on the show. So do stay tuned. Right, I mean, let's pick the bones in from Saturday though, Glenn. Obviously, Saints 0, West Ham 1. Another utterly uninspired performance, and I think we've become this team that has have now become consistently inconsistent.
Yeah, well, we knew against West Ham that they've been really bad recently. They had one win in 7 games or whatever it was, and we needed to get on the front foot and see how much they fancied it. From the first whistle, the way you test teams out is to pin them back to start with. We just didn't do anything. Everything we did was on the back foot. They were positive. They played 2 guys right up front. They attacked from the first whistle. They put us under pressure. They knew exactly how to get at us, which was, the big physical guys up front, play the ball up to them. And we did nothing. And the first half was right up there with the first half against Everton, where we just kind of just stood there and let the game happen. Centre backs have got the ball, no one's moving. Midfielders don't want the ball, no one's running the channels. It was just awful. And we could have gone 1-0 down in 20 seconds or whatever it was when Rice's goal was disallowed. And the way we reacted or didn't react throughout that first half, we could have been looking at another real battering if if that goal had been, if he'd been onside. But it was just awful. The first half was dreadful. Second half wasn't much better. We didn't have Buffal to bring on to liven things up. And I watched the second half in a kind of coma. It was one of those where it was back to the Pellegrino days where you were just sitting there going, oh, hang on, 80 minutes have gone. What's happened? Nothing. There's nothing I can remember. It was crap basically, and that's part of how I let it not bother me so much these days. I just try not to remember any of it. So thanks for asking me.
It's all become a bit of a malaise at the moment, really, hasn't it? I think a lot of us now become increasingly frustrated because actually I think I watched back the highlights. I don't know why I've watched it back more than once, but I think it's Dave Meriton also suggests that every sequence for Southampton starts with a back pass.
Yeah, well, it's called pass and move for a reason. If you don't move, you can't pass the ball. But we are so terrified of trying to make things happen, it seems, that the midfielders are always looking backwards straight away. The wingers get the ball. They're not looking to take the man on. Very, very occasionally they do that. And usually it's just running into a blind alley and losing the ball. I feel sorry for the defenders. I mean, people start booing the defenders for not passing the ball quickly, or they have a go at McCarthy for not getting rid of the ball quickly. But what are his options? If no one wants the ball, he can punt it long, in which case it's just going to get headed straight back at us. It was just awful. And the recent improvement that we've had with, or relative improvement with the defenders, he's picking a back four now, and he's Jack Stevens has played reasonably well, and Bednarek has played reasonably well in that system. They were shocking, the pair of them. Didn't win a header, didn't win a tackle, and they made Antonio look like the best centre forward in the world. And he's, he's decent, but he's certainly, he's not someone you'd be terrified of, is he? He's hardly Sadio Mane, but we made him look brilliant.
I mean, he caused us all sorts of problems. I think we struggled against his physicality and his directness and his pace, his strength on the ball, and obviously his goal was
all those things you just mentioned are, if you wanted to create a striker to play against Jack Stevens, for argument's sake, that's what you'd create. Fast, good in the air, physical. That's it. And it's too easy to play against, and we're too easy to play against. There's been some decent analysis I read this week about, teams against Southampton. They just put crosses in the box, and it's so easy to do. Is to just, even if we close them down halfway up the pitch, they just sort of like punt the ball forward and cause absolute havoc. We just don't have a way of playing against it, and we're too easy to play against. We're too easy to score against, and then when we get the ball, we don't seem to have any idea. That was what worried me slightly about Ralph's interview after the game. I thought this for a long time. We have no idea how to play when we've got possession of the ball. He's all about ball wins in the opponent's half and, getting a shot away within 10 seconds and all that stuff. But if you get a team that just goes back to front really quickly, that's 99% of our attacking play dead in the water. So what are we doing? What are they coaching them during the week? I'm sure they're not coaching them to stand there and just not move, but what's going on?
Well, I'm sure we can always hark back to the jobs for the boys kind of thing on this, because we've got coaches backstage that are, have been promoted within. I think it's almost like a token gesture. We've had coaches, goalkeeping coaches now becoming set piece specialists. So I don't know how that works. I just don't understand. I think also Ralph looks lost. He looks lost on that sideline. I mean, any good manager has a good assistant to look back on, and perhaps it may well be that also the assistant is also there to help inspire the players. And I think we haven't seen any inspiration recently. And we sort of go through these matches. We play for 45 and then decide to turn up in the second half or decide to play in the first half. There's just no kind of consistent inspiration.
No, I mean, I raised a query on Twitter not so long ago about, what do our coaches do? I mean, we got this Kitch Bickler or whatever his name is. He came in as the assistant manager, but it seems that he's a video analyst, and he's certainly not, in Ralph's ear during the game, saying, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Or questioning why he's got a winger playing at fullback and all that sort of stuff. And as for, I mean, the first team coaches are Davis and Watson, two goalkeepers, and you kind of, okay, you don't need to have been a horse to be a jockey, but it's I do wonder what who's coaching the finer details of attacking play when you've got the ball. I don't really know. I mean, you can't get too angry about it because you don't know what goes on the training ground, but it's a bit of a mystery. And when you see garbage like I saw, or like we've all seen, especially in the home games this season, it does make you wonder. But I mean, also this week we had central defenders letting the ball bounce. What on earth? I mean, I was coaching my son's under-10s team, a few years ago, not to let the ball bounce. It's crazy. It's something you learn when you're a kid. But we're letting the ball bounce once, twice. We're looking at the striker and we're too scared to go near the ball. I mean, it's just all horribly fell apart on Saturday.
Yeah, indeed. Now let's try and get back to some of the highlights against West Ham. Not that we should call it highlights. I mean, it's mostly a lowlights reel,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's typical of Southampton, though. I don't know if the commentators at Match of Day decided to write their script before or after they've watched the game, because I saw Match of Day Saturday night, and Jonathan Pearce said, Danny Ings, he can't stop scoring 5 games with a goal in a row, and Sebastian Haller cannot buy a goal. And it's absolutely typical that a striker who hasn't hit the back of the net in 3 months scores a goal against Saints, and we failed to clear our lines though. It's basic defending once again.
Yeah, I mean, it was Antonio made a mug out of Bednarek, didn't he, on the right hand side, and we were appealing for the ball going out. But after Antonio had done his thing, after that it was 3 unmarked players, and I think Antonio pulled it back to Snodgrass, was it? Cross to the back stick, head it down, and then Haller kind of mishits it, but it goes in the corner. So I mean, that's a bit fortunate for a striker who hasn't scored for a while to get a scruffy goal. But at the end of the day, you can't get too annoyed about it because they totally deserve to be in front at that stage, and we don't learn the lessons week in, week out.
Right, let's go to some positive comments on the live stream. The lamb sauce, up the Saints.
Up the Saints, yeah, why not?
Go with that. Love that. Right, hello, El Bartlett. Good evening once again. Right, let's.
He's got a picture of Danny Ings as his little avatar there, and Danny Ings and McCarthy were the 2 players who played to the required standard on Saturday. I thought they were. Ings was excellent, and that one he spanked in the top corner after that non-foul by Gineppo was that was a special bit of play, and he is our one hope of keeping out of it. And when we talk about this week's opponents, Villa, they struggle a little bit up front, and if we can sort the defensive side of things out, got to keep Ings going. Obviously, we've got a chance.
Listen, Star Wars is out on Thursday, and I think Danny Ings is our only hope. Those that have seen the very first episode, A New Hope. So there you go. Joe also comments, Ings could have had a hat-trick in a space of 5 minutes. Only good part of the game. The other 85 was bad. But I think we have to highlight Danny Ings here again. The only player that really showing some drive, some commitment. I mean, he hits the bar. He hits the post shortly after that, and then obviously, as you just mentioned, the ball gets the goal gets ruled out for a foul that Gineppo on Fredericks, which was utterly pathetic.
Yeah. I think the problem was with Gineppo, like with Boufal as well, is that when they lose the ball, their first thought does seem to be to grab hold of whatever player's just taking it off of them. And I don't know what really happened because I haven't watched it back, but it looked to me like he kind of went to grab him and didn't really quite grab him, and then Ings nicked the ball off of Declan Rice, I think, and smashed it in the goal. But the referee I didn't get excited because the referee had already, I'd seen the referee had already blown or heard the whistle, so it was it was a strange one. I mean, the interesting one was the one where Ings went through and hit the post because that was an early flag for offside. And then I did see the highlights of that, and they said it would, if that had gone in, it would have had to have been given because he was onside. But them's the breaks. Don't go for you when. And to be honest, we didn't deserve it to go for us. But there you go.
But here's the argument that the linesmen, the assistant referees, have been told to keep their flag down on marginal decisions like that.
Yeah, but the whole decision-making process with VAR and assistant referees is just. It's a weekly changing feast, isn't it? No one seems to know what they're doing. Some linesmen keep the flag down, some don't. I mean, why wasn't the Danny Ings goal? Why didn't that go to VAR? Why didn't they have a look at that and say, oh, hang on, it wasn't a foul? I don't know if that's the brief they're supposed to do that or not. No one seems to know, and it doesn't matter if we don't know, to be honest. But it seems to be that the officials at the game don't actually know either. So yeah, it's just some you get, some you don't. We've had a fair few, obviously, and we had a couple in the game on Saturday, but ultimately it didn't make any difference.
It's horses for courses, isn't it? I guess that could be the right description to that. But I mean, again, Ralph has been questioned over his late substitutions, as Hassan comments here. Good to see you, Hassan. Haven't seen you for a while. How are you doing? His substitutions keep costing us, and there's one he follows up with 1-0 down. He goes more defensive. Just simply don't get it.
I got the half-time substitution because we were getting smashed in midfield. We needed an extra midfielder in there, and we played better in the second half with Romeo on. He was actually one of our better players in the second half. Taking Redmond off was absolutely no loss whatsoever. So I can kind of sometimes I don't think it's quite it's quite as simple as, you know, throwing. If we'd thrown on another striker, we probably would have got smashed even more. But I thought throwing on the midfielder worked. The treatment of Shay Adams is slightly odd. You know, giving him 2 minutes at the end is a bit of a strange one. At the end of the day, he's a striker that needs a goal. And Shane Long, for all his hard work, he's not a goal threat whatsoever. So to me, Shay Adams, you know, I agree on that point. Shay Adams should have been on for 20 minutes, not 2 minutes. And that, you know, who knows, he might have got a goal, and then that would have set him up for the rest of the season, hopefully, because you just hope that when he gets one goal, that it'll kickstart him.
Well, do you know what? I foolishly suggested to a sort of it was a Premier League preview show, and I said I wouldn't be surprised if Shay Adams scores double figures this season. Now, crikey, I'm going to eat my hat if that happens by the end of this season. So I don't know.
Shay Adams thought we were going to win the league, so you know.
Yeah, crikey.
There you go.
I've been drinking whatever he's been drinking, but he just needs a break, to be honest. And right, let's go to another comment here. From Joe. Gineppo came to life when he swapped to that left wing, his preferred position.
Yeah, that's true. But it's also Bufal's preferred position. It's also Redmond's preferred position. And this is part of the ongoing recruitment farce. You know, we've signed players who, yeah, they're decent players. All three of them are decent players. They all play the same position. You know, did we need to sign another left winger? Surely we needed more. Someone who was comfortable playing on the right hand side. They're all right-footed, aren't they, as well? They're all right-footed, and they all want to play on the left. So you think it wouldn't be too much of a stretch for them to play on the right. Bufal looks the most comfortable of the three on the right hand side. But
what's happened to Bufal recently? His toe must be the size of a watermelon.
Yeah, it must be some table that he kicked. You know, that was one of the depressing things actually at half time, because, you know, half time, the first half have been absolute crap, and you know, what can we do to get back in this? Bufal's not on the bench because he, you know, both the two games that we won, he was the man who made the difference when he came on, and in the Arsenal game as well. So you need him to be either in the team or on the bench. I can't imagine he's going to make it back any further than the bench this week, but hopefully he'll be there to inject a bit of life into things in the second half.
Yeah, and exactly that's what we need, a bit of impetus, a bit of injection, a bit of creativity, because we're falling short in that department as well. But I think we have to give credit to Alex McCarthy, in fact, on Saturday. Without VAR, in fact, you know, some of his great saves, it could have easily been 2 or 3 to West Ham.
Yeah, he's I mean, I've been beating the drum for him to play for a long time, because I was never convinced by Angus Gunn either last season or this season. And McCarthy's come in, and in the main he's done better than Gunn, but he has made mistakes. He's, you know, the couple of crosses that the one at Man City and the Arsenal one, where, you know, he's come for a cross and not got there, and we've ended up letting in late goals, which has kind of taken the gloss off what up till that point had been a very good performance. He was very good against West Ham, and the save at the start of the second half in particular, where I think it was Fornals had a shot from the edge of the box, I was sort of right behind that, and that's in. Oh no, Christ, he saved it. That was a brilliant save. And you know, he's done well, and his distribution's a bit flaky sometimes, but I just urge people sometimes before they start moaning or booing at the game to just to have a look at what his options are. You know, occasionally he hangs onto it too long, but most of the time there's absolutely no one to give it to. So he ends up having to try and, you know, pump it into the corner, and we just lose the ball anyway.
I mean, I was actually frustrated once or twice on Saturday. You know, McCarthy had the ball in his hands, and everybody was, you know, waving the ball to get the ball quickly hard the pitch, but he just sort of dwelled on it a little bit too long, and then we lost our opportunity to counter attack.
Yeah, it is difficult when you're a goalkeeper, because you know, 1-0 down, 10 minutes to go, whatever. You don't want to take a chance and play anything that might get intercepted. You know, I think part of our problem is the fullbacks are not alive enough to, you know, the centre backs don't split wide, and the fullbacks are not deep enough to, you know, receive the ball straight away. That should be the sort of trigger when the goalkeeper gets the ball. As soon as the keeper gets it, the fullback should be wide, and you can get the ball out there straight away, and then let the outfield players do the passing of the ball, because that's what they're supposed to be good at. But our fullbacks don't seem to react when McCarthy catches a ball, and the central defenders, to be honest, are not. You don't really want to give it to them anyway because they're not good enough. Midfielders don't, the central midfield too don't want the ball with their back to play. They never do. So it's 6 and 2 threes. I think sometimes sure he misses an opportunity to get the ball out quick, but a lot of the time there's absolutely no one moving and no one to throw it to or kick it to.
Yeah, I mean, it was, utterly uninspired. Nobody had the desire to have the ball as well. I know you're a great advocate for our number 2, Cedric Suarez.
That's right.
we know he's going to be off in the summer, but
good
news recently, we've been once again linked with Joachim Mæhle. Forgive me, Norwegian viewers or listeners, but this is somebody that we absolutely need to go for to replace Cedric, and we need a bit of quality, somebody with a desire to play in the Premier League. Someone that's not too casual, not too too easy on the ball, let's say. But
someone who can actually defend. First and foremost, you can't be a fullback for a team like Saints in the bottom half of the league and not be able to defend, and that's Cedric's problem. When you defend as a fullback, you've got to be able to defend on your side of the pitch, and you've got to be able to defend at the back post when it comes across on the other side. And when they're attacking down his side, he doesn't get close enough. He's like scared of messing his hair up or something, and he doesn't get close enough to the winger. So that Arsenal game, Jesus, every time, was it Tierney got the ball got delivered every time, didn't get anywhere near him ever. It's just embarrassing. I mean, when he first turned up, he used to end up wearing a crash helmet every game, didn't he? He got injured because he wasn't frightened to get stuck in there, and he was probably trying to prove that he could handle the English game. But I think for the last 2 years, he's not wanted to be here, and he's not putting it in. He's not putting his body on the line. He's not trying to block crosses. He's bloody useless, basically. And at the back post, he's embarrassing. When the cross comes over from our left-hand side, you've got, I call it the Cedric and Stevens corridor of uncertainty, because Stevens, invariably the ball floats over his head, and Cedric stood there at the back post, and whoever it is, be they 5'2" or 6'1", has got a free header. And he's just hopeless. He's hopeless. And as for his phenomenal crossing, don't get me started. But so Mæhle, whatever his name is, whoever, he's got a decent pedigree. But we're in the same old January problem. Does he want to join a team that's in the crap down the bottom of the league? Hopefully he does. Hopefully he's decent. But I've learned now with transfer windows and whatnot, you can never judge it until later on, because you never want to be sitting there going, well, I'm not very impressed with our transfer window, because then you're pessimistic. Like in the summer, we needed a striker and we signed Che Adams. And everyone thought, oh, okay, he got loads of goals in the Championship. Great, we signed a striker, decent transfer window. Here we are 4 months later, he still hasn't scored, and suddenly it's not looking that great. It's the same when we signed Wesley Hoyt and Vestergaard, because we thought, well, we need someone to address the weakness at the back, or the weakness in the air at the back, and neither of those have turned out to be the answer either. So Mæhle, if he comes, great. It would be nice to have another option, and to be honest, if it's a choice between Cedric leaving in January and leaving at the end of the season, I'd rather get rid of him now.
Well, I mean, that's where he holds a bit of value. At least try and cash in him in January. Apparently, Italy clubs are interested, but I don't know.
Yeah, he's got a good agent, hasn't he? The clubs he gets linked with is scandalous. Unbelievable. Don't they know people have got televisions? They can actually watch what he's like.
Forgive me, I think he is actually Danish, this lad we've been linked with, actually, Joachim Mæhle. But also we've been linked with Marin Pongracic from Salzburg, a centre-back reported by Sky Sports as well. But I think it's going to be a case that we need to sell before we buy in January. And I think, a lot of other clubs will be looking at centre-backs too. But, I mean, it was an unchanged lineup against West Ham. Would you go with the same against Aston Villa?
Well, there seems to be an issue with Jan Valery at the moment, so I can't see the back four changing, to be honest. He may be tempted to change one of the centre-backs. If he does, I mean, it won't. Bednarek plays every game, so it'll be maybe Stevens. He may even play Vestergaard in this game, which could be horrible, but because they've got Wesley up front and they've got the lad who scored the goals against the Liverpool kids yesterday. They're both big units, so he may want a bit more physical presence in there. Personally, I'd still try Kevin Danzo because he hasn't proved to be rubbish as yet, but he seems to be fifth choice out of the five. So I can't see a change in midfield, to be honest. I think he may start Che Adams. I think Che Adams might start. I mean, you shouldn't sort of set too much store in this, but ex-Birmingham player playing against Villa, it may be something that gets him fired up. He may thrive off that. And like I said, he can't be less of a goal threat than Shane Long is, even though Shane Long obviously does a lot of hard work. Romeu might play if he decides to leave Redmond out, possibly. So we go with more or less the team that finished the game rather than the team that started it. But I don't think he's got a lot of choice, and I think he'd be loath to change it around and go three at the back because he's found a system that has actually won us a couple of games, albeit against poor opposition. So changing it completely again, I think is a bit dangerous for him.
What it is as well, this period of time now, it's 3 games in the space of this week, and obviously 4 if you count in the 9 days following this game. So I think we're going to see some rotation over the next set of fixtures as well. But this is another 6-pointer, both of us on 15 points, separated by that red line. With a goal difference in Aston Villa's favour, another chance to leapfrog aside and crawl out the bottom 3.
Yeah, it's a huge game. It's a huge. Forgetting the league table for a second, it's all about finishing 17th this year. So we've got to find 3 teams that are worse than us. Now, I think after the 2 games that we saw a couple of weeks ago, Norwich and Watford, we've got a decent chance of finishing above them. Villa are kind of the next in line. Because I can't see us finishing above Everton or West Ham even Brighton. I thought looked decent the other day. They didn't score the goals, but they look a decent side. You can forget teams like Crystal Palace, Sheffield United. We're not going to get anywhere near those. So if we can Bournemouth? Bournemouth. I know they got the win against Chelsea, but you look at their starting 11 that they're putting out at the moment. I know they've got a couple of injuries and they look ropey. They've got some very sort of average players, but I've been saying that for years, and they always seem to keep themselves in that sort of 13th, 14th place. But yeah, Bournemouth are a possibility. So, but going back to Villa, if we can go up there and get a result, and I mean a win, we certainly can't afford to get beat. But if we get a win up there, it will at least put that little seed in my mind that we might actually have enough to finish above 3 teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's would you call this? I mean, sometimes your podcast that you appear on regularly, Total Saints podcast, they refuse to call it a must-win. But
yeah, well, that was
after
Adam.
Christmas,
that was Adam Leach. He's gone now, so we can say it.
I mean, after Christmas, the set of fixtures could be quite unforgiving. Chelsea, Spurs, Leicester in the new year as well. Easy fixtures in quotation marks for Villa actually after this game. They've got Norwich and Watford, so I think it is important to win on Saturday.
Very much so. And we got a chance. They got a couple of players missing. They got Tyrone Mings missing, so he's sort of their main man defensively. They got a lad, James Chester, who played last night, who hasn't, he's been injured for months. So whether he'll be playing or whether they'll stick with a couple of lads they had there at the weekend when they lost to Sheffield United. I don't know. It's a decent opportunity, but their strengths are in midfield. They got Jack Grealish, who's a decent player. He'll be up against my mate Cedric, so that'll be a fun one. McGinn and Hurahan seem decent players in midfield as well. So yeah, it'll be a tough game, but we're better away from home, obviously. So why not?
Yeah, indeed. We've got some of our wins away from home this season in Sheffield and Brighton because there's less pressure, I think. But ultimately, actually, since the humiliation in October against Leicester, I think the fans have been right up for it. And I think I've got to give credit to the fans once again who have been phenomenal recently. Yeah,
very much so. And there was an interesting little thing on social media not so long ago about and the main thrust of it was getting people singing at games and participating more rather than just sitting there in a coma like me. And that has made a difference. I'd just like to say that, especially in the home games where it is pretty quiet most of the time. The sort of small area in the Itchen North that have been singing, that has an effect, because I sit in the chapel end in the family bit, and there's been even people singing in there. I mean, not that you'll be able to hear it at the other end, but there's definitely, when there is one section, it only needs to probably be 20 or 30 people or whatever who are giving it some. It does have an effect around the ground. And I mean, there are some people that no opers, but I totally agree with you. The fans have been brilliant since the Leicester game, and long may it continue. And I hope the lads and lasses who started the singing in the Itchen North keep going.
Indeed, and it will be a sold-out support once again at Villa Park. We always take a good support up there. It's been a few years since I've been there, in fact, and obviously some fond memories back at the turn of the century, 2003, in that semi-final against Watford.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, it's a great traditional old football ground, and there's as we go on, there's less and less of those. So from a fan's point of view, it's if you're an old fart like me, it's a great one to go to. But it's much better than going to for me, it'll always be better than going to somewhere like the New Tottenham ground or the Emirates or somewhere like that. And I'll just those sort of places leave me cold, I'm afraid. I'm just not a fan at all.
Soulless bowls, I think a lot of people do describe it as.
Soulless, very big bowls. I mean, we've got a soulless small bowl, but yeah, they're yeah. I mean, you talk about atmospheric games, you're just never going to get it in grounds like that.
Mark also adds to the comment, the fans have been real stars this season. Right. In the comments, do tell us your lineups, any score predictions. We'll get to ours in just a moment as well. So fire them through. I'll put some up on screen as well. But I mean, if we do win at the weekend, I mean, it would absolutely kind of breed a bit of confidence to the players, and to be out of that bottom three at Christmas.
Yeah, it would do. But we, like when we beat, who did we beat first? We beat Watford, and then we had to follow it up, because there's no point in beating Watford if you're then going to go and lose to Norwich. By winning against Norwich, we went into the Newcastle game thinking, right, we need to back that up. Of course, we managed to throw that game away. And yes, a win against Villa would make a huge difference, sort of like looking at the table, but it's not enough on its own. We're going to have to, at some point in this season, get results against the decent sides, and Chelsea have shown an ability to mess up at home. So that's another one. We can't go there and do what we've done in the home games against Chelsea before, which is just sit there and wait to get beat. We've got, but it's all about being positive. We can't play passive football. We're no good at it. We need to get in teams' faces and play for 95 minutes, not 15.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I hope Saints have done a bit of their homework to watch the Bournemouth victories and the West Ham victories at Stamford Bridge, because obviously Chelsea is following next. So important to at least go there and try not to lose. A sad indictment of our positivity at the moment. Right, let's talk about some formations and some lineups then. I mean, you suggested there may be a couple of changes up front. Joe suggests here, your comments just missed us. There it goes. Buffon, Gineppo on the wings. Ralph can pick the rest. Kieran goes, Danso has to start as well as Valerie. Adams and Armstrong drop Cedric and Pierre Højbjerg.
Can't see Højbjerg getting dropped. I'd like to see Valerie in the team, but there seems to be an issue. Is he injured? Is he not injured? There were stuff on Twitter about him being seen in nightclubs and whatnot when he's supposed to have a virus. Who knows?
I mean, Aston Villa, they've only had one win since October in the league as well, but they'll probably take a bit of confidence beating Liverpool's kids last night, the under-23s in their League Cup. 10 changes, though. Yeah,
10 changes, and I watched from the second goal to the fifth goal, and cliche time, it really was men against boys. They were just and the Liverpool kids, they buzzed around and they passed the ball really well, but ultimately they kind of got brushed off the ball quite a lot, and Kodja up front was kind of just bundling through people, and yes, it's nice to win 5-0 in any game, but it has absolutely zero relevance, bearing in mind they were playing against a team of under 12s, and they they changed all their players basically.
Mark suggests that Armstrong should get a start if Redmond is to be dropped, and we haven't seen him hit the heights of anywhere near that he reached last season as well. George runs us through his 11. McCarthy, Cedric, Stevens, Bednarek, Bertrand, Højbjerg, Ward-Prowse, Armstrong, Redmond, Adams and Ings up top, or 4-4-2.
Yeah, I'd go Gineppo ahead of Redmond, but that's not a bad lineup at all.
Right, score predictions then, Glenn. Let's sign us off. El Barla's signed us off with a 3-1. You haven't quite stipulated which way's that gone. Is that 3 to the home side or 1 to the away side? Let us know. Is it going to be a Saints win or a Villa win, Barla, in the comments? But Glenn, what are you going for?
Let's be optimistic. I'll go for a 2-1 win. I always go for a 2-1 win. I'll go for a 2-1 win. There you go. Same as Matthew Dewey. Good lad.
Exactly. There we go. Any other way will be 3 points adrift, in fact. So, as I say earlier, Aston Villa have got Norwich and Watford in the succeeding games, and difficult for Saints. But I think it's important to go up there and not lose. Here we go. Tristan's gone for a 1-1 draw. Hassan's gone 2-1 Villa. They'll take the lead and throw it and
cheer up, Hassan. Come on.
Kieran goes 2-1, so a little bit of positivity spreading through the comments. And Barlett has confirmed it's going to be Saints to win 3-1. There you go. Right, one more then from Bobby Mack. My prediction is 1-0. Stevens scores 90th minute.
Put some money on it, mate. It'll be about 3,001.
That'd be something for the collection book and us to go home with some smiling faces before Christmas.
Che Adams to score the winner, take his shirt off in front of the whole end and give it the big one. That'd be nice.
We'll love that. Have that. The whole end. All right, great stuff, Glenn, and thank you so much for all of your comments today on this Wednesday night. Just remind us where we can catch up with your very sweary blog.
If you just Google League One -10, you'll find it. It's 10.5 years of rubbish, really. 10.5 years of swearing about matches and putting lots of opinions out there, which you read back later and find you were totally wrong. But it's all out there. I don't care. Got broad shoulders, as you can see. So it's all out there. So if you've not read it so far, then prepare to be disappointed. No, League One -10. Go and look it up and see what you think. Cheers.
Excellent stuff, one and all. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for all of your comments, and do check back on Saturday. There will be some fan reactions. We're traveling up to Villa Park, so come say hello if you're going to see us. Thanks for joining us, one and all.